if we need to fly even faster, say 1,300 miles an hour, and then land in the space of a small parking lot? No one has to be more precise than the pilots who take off and land on the movable airports we call aircraft carriers.
Being selected to the Blue Angels really is a big honor, but it's important that people realize that we're all naval aviators, and we came from the fleet and we're going back to the fleet. The excitement and challenge of shipboard operations and landing and taking off aircraft carriers is something that we all look forward to going back to, and we miss it, believe me. We really do.
To take off, a powerful catapult slingshots the plane from 0 to 160 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds. Before such a launch, a pilot must be sure his control surfaces flex every bit as well as the wings of a bird, a very fast bird. Because such flying is so intense, the FA-18 is equipped with the latest high-tech aids.
They actually have a voice that speaks to you, kind of call your attention. And the engineers thought that the pilots would be more responsive to a woman's voice, so that's what they put in there.
Altitude. Altitude.
If you set a certain altitude, it'll come up and say, altitude, altitude, in a very calm voice. So sometimes they're a lot more calm than we are.
As a Blue Angel, Scott Anderson has seen his share of difficult flying. But if you think taking off from an aircraft carrier is tough, try landing on one in rough seas. It's the toughest challenge in aviation, and it's all about touch.
Tech 301, Hornet auto ball 5-6. Roger, auto 29 slowest.
The second he feels the deck beneath him, Scott hits the throttle so he can take off again if his hook doesn't catch the arresting cable.
You know, when you first miss, there's an incredible sinking feeling because you don't want to have to go up to the tanker. That kind of punishes the air wing. They can't turn to where they need to go. They've got to wait for you to get aboard. So there's a sense of you don't want to let the air wing down. You want to get back aboard the ship.
Altitude. Altitude.
Every time I come out of the wires, my knees are still shaking. My heart's pounding 1,000 miles an hour, and it takes a while to calm yourself down. But you go out there the next time, just fired up and ready to get after it because it's what we all love to do.
High-performance flight puts enormous stress on the body. An FA-18 can easily exceed the physical limits of the pilot. Imagine a roller coaster ride, but at hundreds of miles an hour. To pull G's like that, the Blue Angels avoid tobacco and alcohol, get plenty of sleep, and run at least 2 miles a day. When flying this close to the limit, it's possible for the plane to go into an out-of-control spin. Remember, a movement of only 1/8 of an inch can be the difference between flight and free fall. Pilots train for spin recovery, so they'll know what to do in a life-and-death situation. Besides slamming the pilot around, the increased G-forces can pull the blood from his brain and make him black out.
5 left.
Coming out, coming out.
Warning.
Forward stick. Recovered? Roger that,
Warning.
heading home.
The first thing that happens is what's called gray out, where you start losing your color vision. And then you experience what's called tunnel vision, and your periphery will start to close in, and the things on the edge will become black, and it starts closing in until basically you're looking through a soda straw. And then after that, you can have total blackout where you're conscious but you can't see. And then the final stage is the loss of consciousness.
Jet pilots experience G-loads and fast turns and climbs. But what about stunt flyers like champion Sean Tucker?
We go through these rapid onsets of high positive Gs to high negative Gs, sustained negative Gs where your head becomes engorged with blood and you're pushing, and then you come right away to a rapid onset of positive Gs. You can pass out like that. And you really have to know and understand when to hold them and when to back it off a bit.
To avoid blacking out in a spin, pilots learn to flex neck, chest, and leg muscles to trap blood in their brains. To achieve this kind of muscular control, the Blue Angels weight train for at least an hour every day. Pilots also train in a spin simulator, a centrifuge referred to by some as the swirling, hurling torture.
It is one of the most painful memories of my life because you're inside of a machine that is going to just put heavy G-forces on your body.
The centrifuge also teaches pilots like Ryan Scholl to rely on their instruments, not their senses, when they become disoriented. In the centrifuge, the pilot practices tensing muscles to hold blood in his head. The training is over, and the Blue Angels are ready for the air show circuit. The San Francisco show is one of their favorites. With most of the rough edges smoothed out, they perform with precision and grace.
Hi, how are you? You got your face all painted, huh? I barely saw you down there. I thought this was a little walking bush that came by.
The biggest surprise to me is the ability that we have to get through to the kids and to put a smile on the kids' faces.
Nice shades, pretty futuristic.
The fact that I can have that kind of an influence over kids in school to get them to maybe try a little bit harder and to get excited about what they're doing is by far the most special part of the job for me.